Welcome back to Bombastic Nation and ting and ting and ting. Back with some more vibe for all you. I'm Mr. Giant, you know what I mean? And I haven't been uploading. It's not because I was burnt out. I took a 4-day trip and I went to Steven City, Virginia. Went to climb a couple of mountains. Let me see. One was Mary's Peak. That was about 2,500 feet up. You know what I mean? And the other one was, hold on. I got it wrong. One, I don't remember the name. But what I do know is I saw some hand gliders taking off. So I filmed the whole thing. You know, it was like a kind of a, vlog, vacation type of thing. So, that's going to be on my other channel. But the one where I saw the hand gliders going up, and I can't remember the name of it. That was about 2,500 feet up. The second one was Mary's Peak, and that one was about 3,800 feet up. Yes, you know what I mean? Got some good vibes and take some good scenery and all of that. The Shenandoah Valley and all of that. It was a great trip. So, came back, and I was having trouble with this thing. You know what I mean? It just would not work properly. So I had to take a step back, recalibrate my camera, and set everything up so that it's vibing up pretty good and thing, you know what I mean? So I ain't gonna talk too much. This is the final episode of part of the video in the Falklands 1982, 3 of 3. And I know I promised it was going to be Tuesday, but I had the issue when I came back. But here it is. Here it comes. Let's YouTube and simmer.
This forced march inevitable. Commandos called it yomping. It was tough going. In the first 13 hours they covered only 14 miles. Where it was not boggy, tufted grass turned ankles. Marching at night was even worse, especially for those at the end of a queue of 600 men stumbling over the uneven ground. Royal Fleet auxiliary ships braved air attack to speed supplies to the forward areas, while Marines again dug defensive positions. Sunday made...
I'm gonna tell you, man, digging those foxholes in the defensive positions is the hardest thing you will ever do. You're just digging and digging and digging. And it's kind of like digging your own grave. If you think too much, that's what you're gonna think. So you're kind of like digging your own grave because there's a possibility you might not come out of there. I don't think any human should have to worry about it. I think we should just be chilling and free, you know what I mean, and all of that. I'm not, like I said before, I'm not going to say all wars is not necessary. There are some times when some people are really crazy and they need to be taken care of. However, when politics come into play with it, there's ulterior motives for people. Politics and business get into play with it, you know what I mean? War shouldn't be a business. War shouldn't be at all. It shouldn't be at all. But if it is, if it has to be, it shouldn't be a business. It shouldn't be fighting for oil. It shouldn't be fighting for minerals. It shouldn't be fighting for material stuff. It should be solely based on fighting for the freedom of people. If that is what is supposed to happen, which if we pay attention and we take care of each other and we respect each other, we wouldn't come to that. It's a lack of respect that causes a lot of wars, you know what I mean? I'm better than you, you're better than me, you're less than me, or whatever, and then we go. When it all boils down to it, because that is the rhetoric used to cause people to want to fight. I'm not saying this is what's going on in this case, so nobody get in the comment section and go, oh, you know what I mean? I'm just saying in general. Let's keep going here and ting and ting. I'm glad this thing is working, man, because I'm back.
The weather closes in to protect Canberra's return to San Carlos water to deliver 5 brigade to the battlefield. "3,200 men of the Gurkhas, Scots and Welsh Guards trooped over rickety jetties. These men, representing the army, as opposed to the largely naval forces so far involved, would deploy through Goose Green to establish the southern front. the Army's anxiety to get involved in the fighting alongside the Marines would lead to tragedy. Complete absence of Argentinian opposition would quickly lead them through Darwin and onto a place called Fitzroy. But behind the calm, supply lines were becoming desperately stretched. Any means possible were now being used to speed 5 Brigade into forward positions, matching 3 Brigade in the north. But to move troops and stores in sufficient numbers, bigger ships were needed, the commando carriers Sir Tristram and Sir Galahad. The island's coaster was not enough. At Fitzroy, clearer weather allowed Argentinian spotters a view of the new beachhead and the relaxing battalions. They called in an airstrike.
Wow. They were just chilling.
3 Argentinian Skyhawks attacked Sir Galahad, still packed with Welsh guards. Tons of ammunition exploded in the open tank deck, where most troops were concentrated. 43 died and 150 were badly burned.
1 minute you're chilling and the next minute, boom.
Smoke to lift men off. The guards had been due to sail onto Bluff Cove, and their commanders had kept them on board rather than face an overland march and separation from their heavy equipment. Helicopter downdrafts steered life rafts away from the inferno. The raid inflicted the greatest losses of the war on British forces, and the Welsh Guards took no further part in the conflict. Despite the losses, British forces were now poised to move on Stanley itself from the highest ground. To do so, they fought their way through a series of mountain battles. These took them to the very edge of the capital, precipitating a sudden collapse in Argentinian resistance. First, the Argentinian defences were engaged by the 105mm howitzers of the 29th Commando Regiment, who'd been airlifted onto Mount Kent. Initial targets were enemy hilltop positions outside Stanley, and they fired up to 500 rounds a day with an accuracy that played a strong part in the final collapse of Argentinian morale.
Those things are violent. Look at the retraction on those things. They're violent, boy.
Scores surrendered as the perimeter defences, manned mainly by the Chicos, crumbled under the barrage. From the south, too, artillery homed in on Argentinian positions guarding the approaches to Stanley.
Well, I don't know much about military stuff, even though I've experienced a little bit of stuff. But whenever I see military stuff, I see violence. That's just the way I see it. I'm not saying the people are violent, but just looking at the weaponry, it just looks violent. You know, it doesn't look peace-inducing. It doesn't, to me, bring about peace. It just looks violent. It moves violently. And I'm a peaceful man. I don't like nothing violent around me. It's one reason why I stay to myself a lot where I am. Everybody wants to be violent. I'll beat you up, I'll tear you down.
Using supercharge and laser rangefinders, the guns could pinpoint the strategic heights of Sapper Hill and key positions in Stanley itself.
I guess they were meant to look violent.
Under enemy fire, officers on Two Sisters Mountain plotted their attacks. A key assault weapon would be the Milan anti-tank missile. Argentina's greater firepower proved relatively ineffective because they failed to concentrate it accurately.
Yeah, that
Mountain battles were at
and
night
boom.
to avoid the problems of fighting
Scary.
on open Falklands terrain in daylight. On successive nights, Mounts Longdon, Harriet, Tumbledown, and Wireless Ridge.
Those
fell
flares,
in
man.
infantry assaults.
Every time I see those flares here,
Suddenly, 25 days after the landings,
I remember sitting in my veranda, and I live in a kind of a valley. It's a valley, I can't see the ocean, and behind that valley is another little valley, and then the airport. And then on this side, there's a little hill, then a little hill, and then there's a pretty steep hill right there. And I remember sitting in my veranda at night looking up at the hill at the back of my house, and those flares would come down and just light up the place. Every time I see it, and I know I talk about it probably every single time, but you could almost see people running on in the trees and stuff. That thing was so bright. You could almost see people scurrying in the trees trying to get away or trying to hide and stuff like that. And as soon as those things light up, you hear AK-47 and M16 start barking at each other. Didn't last long, but it's sort of a debilitating sort of fear. It was like watching a movie but being part of it.
Argentinian resistance broke, and the news passed rapidly along the columns of Marines negotiating minefields outside Stanley.
Minefields is a hell of a thing, boy.
They had overcome 11,000 well-armed troops with better coordination and leadership, and better use of support weapons. The British infantry assaults had been marked by excellent use of well-practiced tactics and initiative from non-commissioned officers. Once ashore, they never lost a battle. Yet, of forces numbering some 10,000 men, just 1,300 had come into frontline contact with the Argentinians, and they had won through by combining speed and aggression with the unexpected moves of indirect tactics. And this relatively small number took nearly 13,000 prisoners in a conflict that still seemed to some observers like two bald men fighting over a comb.
Well, thus end the three-part episode of the Falklands, 1982. If you remember, it was 1983, October, that the Grenada conflict happened. The 80s were very tumultuous down that way, man. You have South America going wild, but South America seemed to go wild all the time. And then certain islands in the Caribbean were having their own troubles. But it seems kind of like that's happening again now. Because South American countries are having issues, especially with the virus hitting them and the economy collapsing in so many places. And I noticed it on one of the islands, St. Vincent, there was this big riot 2 days ago. Well, it wasn't so much a riot. It was just angry people tossing stuff around, pretty much, and the police was just standing there, making sure nobody gets hurt. But people were mad about something. I haven't seen the news of what's going on, but it seems like it's starting to pick up again in that part. And it was relative peace since the 80s. Maybe not so much in South America, but the islands and stuff like that. But things seem to be heating up again down there. We just had the assassination of the Haitian president, which it's been a while since Haiti had a situation like that, maybe a decade or so, maybe. Or it's just that we weren't being told about it. It wasn't on the news because it wasn't newsworthy. His assassination was newsworthy, and now they're saying that America might be involved in it, which is not confirmed or anything like that. So, stuff is starting to go crazy again. And since it just happened in the 80s, I think it's time we take a step back and check out what the problem is, what's going on, and see how we could fix it without violence erupting. Without violence erupting. You gotta start taking care of each other, alright? Cool runnings.